Good morning. This is Dr. David A. Padgett. This is Geography 1010, World Regional Geography, Section 98B. Today is February 3rd, 2021. And again, if you are new to this class, I strongly suggest that you go to content and go to the January 25th lecture recording. That lecture recording focuses upon the grading scheme for the class, some of this very specific rules, and also it describes some of the assignments that will be required throughout the course. And again, now that we're recording, this class is in asynchronous format, which means that we will meet live every Monday and Wednesday at 11:10 a.m. Central Time. But it is, if you can attend, do so. It's not necessary, but I really would like for you to attend so that you can ask questions firsthand and you can engage with the course and course materials in real time. If right now is not convenient for you, all of these lectures will be recorded and made available to the class as soon as possible after the live lecture, so you can watch at a time that's most convenient to you. Okay, so going back to the course landing page, you'll notice that I have pushed back the due dates for the writing assignments 1 and writing assignment 2 to February the 8th. I noticed that many of you have already done that, done those assignments or completed those assignments, so that's fine. If you have not, please get them done. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, lecture recordings for the 27th of January and the 1st of February are available for your viewing there. Also, we're in the second week, so you do have a reading assignment that's due on Monday, and that is map interpretation basics. So we're going to get into mapping and cartography next week. And so I would suggest that you complete this reading assignment. Be aware of these various vocabulary words. And so remember, this is the week 2 unit A reading assignment. So all of this material, all the material that you see listed under under unit A, whether it's a reading assignment, writing assignment, or what have you, all of that material will be covered on the unit A exam. I will give you a 2 weeks advance notice for when that exam will be administered. As you can see, things are very dynamic in this class right now in terms of enrollment. We had a lot of people just join this class this week. And so once everything settles out, I will then give you a 2 weeks advanced notice of when that Unit A exam will be administered. But I did not want to place it on the schedule before I knew that the enrollment was set and in place so that everybody can be on the same page in preparing for the exam. Okay, so now we're going to go into where we left off last time. During the last lecture, we were focusing upon careers in geography and geospatial technology. And so that's where we'll start today, is looking at this presentation. I will again revisit some of what I talked about last time briefly, and then we'll move forward. So I'm going to download this, and again, all of this material that's covered here is fair game for the Unit A exam. So try to pay some amount of attention. Okay, so last time we started off looking at some geography and geospatial technology careers, and we start off with this article. The subtitle is 21st Century Cartographers Mapping a Brave New World of Technology. And so essentially, all of you have at some point probably used Google Maps or something like that. And you've probably, in some cases, noticed that perhaps a restaurant or a hotel you were traveling to on the Google Maps was still under construction. You still saw a pile of dirt. Whereas when you got to the hotel was obviously open for business and it's constructed. So the image that you saw on Google Maps was obviously dated. It was older. So a lot of the maps that we see online are not updated in real time. But in order for them to be useful to us, they have to be updated in real time as much as possible. So there is here's some people who are doing just that, riding around, doing this new modern type of cartography so that your maps or our maps will be updated and as accurate as possible. And so I talked about that a little bit last time. Here I'm sharing a lot of job advertisements. Here's a job advertisement for this job, local data collector. And so these people who have experience in geography or geographic information systems, GIS, go travel around and update these maps on the fly to try to keep up with changes in the land, keep up with changes in the human environment, and keep up with changes in the physical environment as much as possible. Because remember, a map is just a snapshot in time. It's not something that is dynamic. Whatever was happening when that map was made obviously was only happening in that moment. From that point forward, everything changes. We also looked at Forcex, this military mapping company started by a veteran, Joseph Calabresi, right here in at Fort Campbell, just outside of Nashville. And we mentioned that this company makes maps for the military. That's what they do. They use geographic information systems, a lot of computer programming. And in a very short, relatively short period of time, he started the company in 2004, and not quite 10 years later, the company was producing $30 million in annual revenue every year as a military contractor. And so you can see that this is what geography is now. It's more of a high-tech field. It's very lucrative if you get into certain sectors. I also mentioned that Forcex, since that article was written, here's an updated article of where Forcex has moved to Nashville. So they moved from Clarksville to Nashville. The CEO now is Calabresi's wife, Tracy Garino. So this is one of the very few tech firms that has a woman as its CEO. It's very rare, but it's a good thing. And you notice in this picture, we have Alicia Brown and Erica Harris, obviously women of color and women working for this company in a very high-tech science, technology, engineering, and math field. And so again, if you are in these fields, such as if you're a Cabrera or anyone else that's majoring in engineering, you might want to Google Forcex and send them your resume. They are always looking for local students, or even if you might even be able to work for them virtually now in this new environment, perhaps. But it's a good idea to look out for those types of experiences and opportunities using geography and cartography. And we looked at this article showing how important maps and geography are to the military, that this technology is life-saving for people who are engaged in military activities. We also mentioned that global positioning systems is also very important to the military. Determining absolute locations, latitude and longitude using GPS is extremely important if you are engaged in any kind of military activity, whether it's flying a drone or what have you. I think we left off here last time with Domino's Pizza. And so this is an ad from Domino's Pizza looking for a mapping specialist. And so you may or may not be surprised to learn that Domino's Pizza hires people who do GIS. Any company that delivers employs people that have a GIS background. And so if you're paying attention to the screen, here is an advertisement from Domino's Hotspots. And so it says Domino's create a form of delivery where you can get pizza delivered to more than 700 non-addressable locations across Miami. So here are, so if you're on the beach somewhere, if you happen to be somewhere not at a physical address, then it is possible for you to perhaps find a hot spot near you on the beach. And those hot spots are absolute locations, latitude, longitude. And this is not just in Miami, this is all over the country. You could be at a park, you could be in Piedmont Park in Atlanta, or you could be down on the river in Memphis somewhere, and perhaps, and have a pizza delivered to you outside, not at your house. And so obviously this is done with GIS and GPS technology. And so people who work for Domino's in-house have developed those capabilities. So anything like DoorDash, Uber Eats, all use GPS and GIS technology to deliver food. Amazon uses it. FedEx, UPS, any company that delivers anything uses this software. So don't limit yourselves to thinking that, you know, this technology is only used by the military. Lots of places use it. Here's Walgreens. Walgreens pharmacy. You might think, well, why would a pharmacy hire a geographic information systems analyst? Well, as you can see from the this job advertisement, this individual who would be hired for this position would primarily be engaged in market planning and research. And so, in other words, this person's job would be to help Walmart decide, Walgreens decide where to best open up new Walgreens pharmacies. Citing businesses is not an arbitrary decision-making process. It's an iterative process. I mean, there are decisions that have to be made based upon numbers. This is a company that can't afford to lose business. This is a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. They want to place their pharmacies in communities that will make them wealthier, which will enhance their profits. That's what they want to do. They don't want to open up Walgreens in the neighborhood. The next thing you know, 5 years later, the Walgreens is out of business, or 1 year later, the Walgreens is out of business because they didn't have a customer base. And so that's what this person would do, be market analysis for Walgreens. So I'm just going to toss a question out to anyone. What do you think would be the target demographic population for Walgreens? What type of population characteristics in a community would Walgreens seek out if they were going to place a new store there?
People with medical.
Okay, but in terms of demography, that could be anybody. But in terms of what demographic characteristics, what population characteristics Walgreens look for as people who would most likely need to use a pharmacy? What kind of people?
Older people?
Your older demographic, people 65 years of age and older, maybe 60 years and older. Most of you all are probably young. You might have some prescribed medicine, maybe you don't. Chances are you don't. But as you get older, you're going to be visiting the pharmacy more and more likely. I'm sure that if you go home and you look in your grandmother's medicine cabinet, you'll see all kinds of bottles and pills and stuff, right? When we get older, our bodies need more help to make it through the day, make it through the week, make it through the year, right? And so, yeah, that would be a target demographic for Walgreens. And so this individual would use geographic information systems to create maps of areas that would be the most attractive places for Walgreens to place its stores. So speaking of marketing, here's another ad. A marketing research analyst for the Tennessean newspaper. It says here that this person would use Map Info GIS. So Map Info is just a software platform for geographic information systems. We're going to be using ArcGIS as our software platform. Map Info is just a different platform. So this person will be responsible for demographic, geographic, and psychographic market and media analysis. So demographic, that's population. Geographic, that's location. What's this psychographic? What's that about? Psychographic marketing is very interesting. It's a combination between geography and psychology. Specifically, it relates to a field called retail anthropology. So what retail anthropologists do in terms of this kind of market analysis is they try to get into the brain of potential customers. Why is that? Why is that necessary? Well, people don't easily spend their money. I mean, do you? Can anybody just sell you anything? No. You will have questions. Well, what's the brand name? What are the performance history of this product? You work hard for your money, right? You don't just want to give it away. So it's somewhat difficult. It's a challenge to get people to spend their money. It's not easy. So you have to get into people's heads, right? And so the way this person would accomplish this task of demographic, geographic, and psychographic marketing is, for this specific job, this person is looking for communities that have the demographic characteristics of people who would most likely buy the print edition of the Tennessean newspaper. You all probably don't read the print edition of the newspaper. Again, what kind of people would be most likely, what sector of the population would most likely read a paper newspaper, like an actual hard copy newspaper?
Older people?
Again, yes, older people. So, but then just because we find the population, so we could easily do a market area search using census data and find out where are the older populations in Nashville, or where are the older populations in Atlanta or Cincinnati or Memphis, right? Or Knoxville. But that doesn't mean that those people are automatically going to jump up and buy a newspaper. There has to be some form of incentive to get people to spend their money on a certain product. And so that's where the psychographic marketing comes in, right? So let me give you another example of psychographic marketing that might be more familiar to you. Let's say you, Jillian or Cheyenne or Gwendolyn, you walk into a store called Designer Shoe Warehouse. Let's say you go to Design DSW. Say you walk in there, and then right after you pick up your pair of shoes, the cashier asks you, "Oh, can I have your zip code area?" Has anybody ever asked you that before when you bought something, like, "Can I have your zip code area?" And you go ahead and give it to them because it doesn't sound very intrusive. It doesn't sound very invasive, right? Most people will just give it up, right? It's not as if she asked you your address, your home address. That would be a whole other thing. But the reason that they ask you for your zip code area is because they don't have it. They don't have your address. So, but with that zip code area, if we collect enough data, if DSW, if Designer Shoe Warehouse collects enough data about every zip code area in, say, Nashville, they can find those zip code areas that fit a certain consumer market demographic, right? So for instance, and this is true, Designer Shoe Warehouse, through their demographic, geographic, and psychographic marketing, can predict down to the week of the year or the month of the year when it is most likely for an African American woman between the ages of 18 and 24 to purchase a pair of red shoes. It's that precise. So let's say Designer Shoe Warehouse knows that in the month of February, it is most likely for that sector of their market to purchase a pair of red shoes, right? So let's say Gwendolyn, Jillian, and Cheyenne all live within the 37209 zip code area. Let's say all three of y'all live in 37209. What does Designer Shoe Warehouse send to you in the mail February 1st? What do you get in the mail? Gwendolyn?
Some kind of promotion for the red shoes.
What's that?
Some kind of promotion for the red shoes.
Yeah, you would get what? Like a coupon, right? And exactly, the color of the shoe on the coupon would be red. So Gwendolyn gets one, Jillian gets one, Cheyenne gets one. Next thing, let's say they know each other. Gwendolyn calls Cheyenne and says, hey girl, did you get that DSW coupon? Cheyenne says, yeah, guess what? Now y'all shoe shopping, right? That's how these marketing companies get into your head, right? And the next thing you know, you're spending your money with them. And you thought it was your idea. No, it was their idea that they planted in your head to get you to spend your money. But it's all based upon geography. It's all based upon target marketing and geography, the same kind of demographic, geographic, and psychographic market analysis that this person would use to sell newspapers. And so again, geography and geographers and the application of geographic information systems is all part of this modern geography now. You know, we're not doing white supremacist environmental determinism anymore. That was over, it was 100 years ago. This is totally different now. This is what we're doing now. If you are in engineering, so here's an ad from Barge, Wagoner, Sumner, and Cannon Incorporated. So if you are in civil or environmental engineering, it is absolutely mandatory that you have geographic information systems in your skill set. If you are an engineer, especially civil or environmental, and you start interviewing for internships, or you are interviewing for eventually a full-time position, you want to be able to say yes to the question, have you had GIS experience? You don't want the answer to that question to be, what? No, you want it to be, oh, yes. As a matter of fact, I took Dr. Padgett's course at Tennessee State University, and then I got some hands-on GIS experience, and then after taking that World Regional Geography class, I then went over to the College of Agriculture and took Dr. Reginald Archer's Introduction to GIS class. So yes, I have GIS experience. That's what you want to be able to say as an engineer as you begin to interview for internships and eventually a full-time career opportunity after you graduate. So if you are a civil engineering major, if you are an environmental engineering major, if you're in architectural engineering, it is absolutely required today that you have some exposure to geographic information systems. It'll make you much more competitive. Speaking of engineers, the United States is not the leader in producing engineers. China produces way more engineers than the United States. India produces way more engineers than the United States. So if you're in engineering, there's somebody in Hong Kong who might be competing for the job you want. There might be somebody in Mumbai right now who might eventually compete for the job you have. So you have global competition to deal with in engineering. And so anything that you can add to your skill set to make you more competitive is of utmost importance, in this very competitive world that we live in today, especially in technology. Also related to engineering to some degree and other science and technology fields, the energy industry hires a lot of people who have backgrounds in geographic information systems and remote sensing and global positioning systems. So here is a position description at Chevron Energy Technology Company. So all of these companies, Chevron, Shell, BP, all of them employ people with experience and skills in geographic information systems and geospatial technology, if that's the direction that you want to go into. If you are interested in environmental conservation, and so here is where you could also see lots of opportunities that involve geographic information systems. So anything having to do with the ecology, environmental conservation, it's very important that you have some background with these technologies. Here's another advertisement from a company called Bright Source here in Nashville, Tennessee. Notice that this person's job title is a GIS spatial analyst. And so the position is primarily in spatial analysis with office location support. It says helping district managers determine office locations using mapping, demographic data, and proprietary data. Same thing I was talking about before with regard to Walgreens, helping companies make these location-based decisions that, these companies invest millions of dollars into where they decide to open up new brick and mortar locations, and they don't want to take a loss there. Sometimes they can't afford to take a loss. Many businesses are out of business because they made the wrong decisions about where to locate. There's a phrase in business that says business is all about location, location, location. That's very true. And so in making these location-based decisions, a lot of geographic thought and a lot of geographic information is involved in those decision-making processes. Here we have a location research analyst with MapInfo Corporation. And so again, geography is very much a part of this business of location or relocation. So for instance, you might get a job at some point and you might be all settled into Atlanta or settled into Cincinnati, and you think that that's where you're going to be, and you might work for whomever for 10 years in Cincinnati or 10 years in Memphis or wherever it is you happen to be. And then one day your boss comes in, or your supervisor or whomever, and says, well, Juan, I have good news and other news. The good news is that you're going to get a promotion. The other news is that you're going to have to move from Atlanta to Los Angeles, right? And so here you are. Now you have to make a decision. Maybe you've never been to Los Angeles. You weren't planning on moving to Los Angeles. Maybe you have a family. They have to move to Los Angeles. What are you going to do? Panic? Are you going to take the position? This happens to people every day. And so there are companies that are involved in location research where you, one, could submit what kind of house you need, how many bedrooms or whatever, and they would take care of a lot of the decision-making process, the very stressful decision-making process that you normally have to go through on your own. What kind of house do we want? How many bedrooms? What kind of neighborhood do we want to live in? Where are our kids going to go to school? Where's my partner going to find a job? All these decisions that have to be made. What's our price range? How much house can we afford? Can we afford a house? Maybe we're going to rent. All these decisions that would have to be made very quickly and would cause you a lot of stress are now made by these location services that use geographic information systems. In fact, if you look at any let me show you something that's happening right now. If you happen to be in the tech sector, I'm going to have to stop my share just for a second. Okay, so if you notice, here's an advertisement. Not an advertisement. This is a story. It says Miami mayor pushes Silicon Valley big tech to move to Florida. So what's happening right now is Miami is promoting itself as the next Silicon Valley. They have been actively recruiting tech companies to move from the Bay Area of California to South Florida. That's a long way for people to move. There's a lot of money involved in that move. So what Miami is doing is using a variety of geographic and location-based services to convince these Silicon Valley CEOs to make that move across the country. And it's not just Miami, it's also Austin, Texas. And it's happening. We're seeing this move on the part of high-tech companies to move to Miami. Here's Forbes. Miami is rising as a tech hub. Why? Here's from January of this year. Why Miami is the next hot tech hub, excuse me, next high tech hub. And so this is happening right now. And so the decision to move from California, where these companies have been for decades, to Miami is a huge decision. And so a lot of geographic information has to go into that decision-making process. And so a lot of business is associated with location research or relocation research. moving along, here is another example of an opportunity right here near Nashville in Laverne, Tennessee. So it's not necessary for you to have to go to a large city like a New York or Chicago, Detroit, uh, to be a GIS manager. There's one right there in Laverne, Tennessee, which is a very small city just outside of Nashville. So these opportunities are everywhere with this software, with GIS and geography. Here's a job with the Tennessee state government. And so this would be a type of position that would be of interest to someone who's majoring in political science. So that would be Mullins or Adams or Weaver. Doing research, in this case for intergovernmental relations. Well, actually the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, obviously the type of position that someone in political science would be interested in. But notice it says GIS software skills are strongly preferred. And so you'll see lots of opportunities such as this one where the position description is pretty mainstream for someone in the social sciences, but then the ask will be for someone that has GIS software skills. And again, at the end of this course, you will be able to say yes to that question if asked in an interview. Yes, I have had some hands-on experience with geographic information systems. And you'll actually be able to say that with confidence. And so anything that you can add to your skill set that will promote what you're trying to do and put you in a better position competitively will help. So even if you're in the social sciences and this GIS seems kind of techie, don't shy away from it. Don't shy away from it. Moving right along. Also, if you are involved in or political science, you might end up going into planning, urban planning. And so here's a position in the city of Franklin, which is Franklin, Tennessee is one of the most popular places to live in the United States right now. A lot of celebrities and athletes live in Franklin for some reason. But they have to manage the land there using geographic information systems. One of the aspects of cities that makes them popular is the quality of life. And what one part of the quality of life, or what contributes to the quality of life or good quality of life, is proper land use and planning for proper land use. I mean, you would want to live in a city that is aesthetically pleasing, one that doesn't have traffic congestion, one that is relatively safe, and has a balance of aesthetics, including historic places. All these decisions that have to be made about land use are political in nature, because at the end of the day, a zoning board has to make those decisions. And so urban zoning is how cities decide what kind of land use can be conducted in a specific location. It's very political. So for instance, here's what might happen to you. Let's say you find out that one of your older relatives has left you some land somewhere in Alabama. And you go down to Alabama, maybe it's outside of Birmingham, and it's a large enough piece of land that you think that you will call Walmart or call Target and say, this is a perfect place for a new Walmart or a new Target. And Walmart or Target might say, oh, you're absolutely right. Yes, we'll pay you $5 million or maybe $10 million for that property so we can build a Walmart or Target there. And you think, yes, my ship has come in. I'm going to be rich. But wait, maybe Birmingham zoning board says, oh no, this land is zoned residential. You can't build a commercial property there, even if you own it. That's not your decision. If you want to build a Walmart or Target on this land, you have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. This is a political process. So a lot of people who earn a bachelor's degree in political science go into planning as a career option, because it's making the decisions about what gets placed where is very political. You know, very political. So that's, and in some cases, if you have a skill set that includes geographic information systems, those land use decisions are often made using GIS or three-dimensional modeling, 3D modeling, so that you can produce a rendering of how that Walmart would look in the community as you try to convince them, that is your neighbors, that they shouldn't mind living next door to a Walmart when they expected to live next door to more houses. Okay, so again, never overlook any possible career paths. You could be a geographer. Now, a geographer, most geographers that are hired by the federal government work for the Central Intelligence Agency, i.e. the CIA. I know a lot of you watch movies with Jason Bourne or what's it, Liam Neeson playing some character, and they're usually in the CIA, and they're jumping out of airplanes and shooting big guns and doing all kinds of martial arts. You think, well, if I work for the CIA, that's what I'm going to have to be. No, the Central Intelligence Agency gathers information. The I in CIA stands for intelligence. That's just another word for information. And they gather information about culture, politics, language, economic development all over the world. And so what better person for that type of job than a geographer? And so the CIA hires many, many, many people with a background in geography. Real estate, I already mentioned real estate in here once. Let's see. So real estate now is all about GIS. Here's a site called Zillow. And you can go on this site and add all kinds of information. If you're looking for a house, and you can say, let's say you can, it's square footage, year built. But some of the, you want to be on the waterfront, you want to be near a park, so on and so forth. So you can use a variety of search keys to narrow down your housing market search. In this case, I don't have any matching results, but GIS is used for in real estate. Maybe you're not ready for Zillow, but maybe you're ready for apartments.com, right? If you use apartments.com and you go to a city, the first thing they're going to give you is a map. This is a geographic information systems based map, which means that when you click on any symbol on this map, it goes into a database that shows you specific characteristics about that location. So I clicked on that dot. So here's a house for rent. It gives you all this information. So this information is actually in a database. And so any GIS map is attached to a database. So that's what makes a GIS map different from just a paper map. You know, this map is connected to a database as opposed to just being a static map. And so in real estate, it is of utmost importance that people now have some form of experience or background in geographic information systems and cartography. A couple of you all are from the Atlanta area. And so there's a suburb of Atlanta called Roswell. And so again, some of these smaller municipalities, are using this software to manage their cities. Speaking of managing cities, the police use this software in crime fighting. It says here ArcGIS access. ArcGIS is a plus for this position as a crime analyst. And so you might ask, well, what does that have to do with police work? Well, any city in the United States pretty much has its own crime map. So if I go to, let's see, if I type in Memphis, got a few Memphis people here, Memphis crime map. There it is, Memphis crime map 2020. And you can go in here and Memphis crime rates and statistics, crime report map here, Memphis, Tennessee crime map. There's all kinds of crime maps. memphiscrime.org. All of these are crime maps that will show you what's happening from one neighborhood to the other in any city in the United States. Even smaller cities have these crime maps. And of course, these maps are used to assist the police in fighting crime. And on a deeper level, there is something called geographic profiling. And so geographic profiling is another, not to be confused with racial profiling. Geographic profiling is what not just police, but what all kinds of entities use in mapping criminal behavior. And so just like most things, criminals follow certain patterns, even geographic patterns, especially people who are pedophiles and sexual predators, such as, well, pedophiles and rapists. They follow a certain pattern. They're predatory. And so geographic profilers are able to create maps that will predict where and maybe even when someone with that kind of criminal propensity might strike next. And so it's just best to obviously be proactive instead of reactive in fighting crime. Not much you can do for a murder victim after they're murdered, right? Not much you can do for a rape victim after they're raped. But if you can prevent the murder or prevent the rape through profiling, that's the objective of crime fighting today. One of the best, if you have time, if you go on YouTube, there's an episode of Forensic Files on YouTube called Badge of Deceit. And so this episode, Badge of Deceit, is all about a rapist that was terrorizing Lafayette, Louisiana, until the police department hired a geographic profiler who used GIS to catch this nefarious individual. And yeah, I think it was like 14 years this individual, this sexual predator, was assaulting women in Lafayette, Louisiana, before GIS was used to solve the case. So that's called a Badge of Deceit on it's on YouTube, Forensic Files. It's only 20 some minutes. You might want to check that out. Okay, for people majoring in biology, there are options using GIS for, in this case, species habitat preservation and conservation, ecosystems, conservation and preservation. Salary's not bad, up to $90,000 a year. And so notice that this was from 2006. So I'm sure that's a six-figure job today. And so here's some other positions. Here's one with the Park Service in Atlanta as a geographer. here are more positions here with salaries for working for the CIA. You can see these are very good. This is from 10 years ago, and that job was paying six figures 10 years ago. So you know that's probably advanced significantly. Office of Housing and Urban Development, again, all these federal jobs. Metro Nashville, planner, GIS analyst. Now, for those of you who are interested in where you are now, you're looking for internships. That's very important that you get an internship, especially now. So these Washington Center internships are still available, and they are internships that in this case may require GIS, geographic information systems, in terms of its the skill set, proficiency with GIS software, but that's not all of them, but just, that'll give you somewhat of an edge. The Student Conservation Association, no matter what your major is, if you are interested in working in environmental preservation and conservation, all majors are potential to work in this area, but these are specific GIS interns. And I'm sure that some of these have been updated so that you can be virtual. Here is one, discover demography. So remember, demography is one of our keywords, our vocabulary words. And in fact, while I'm speaking of internships, these research experiences for undergraduates are for everybody. And really, you should, as soon as possible, Google your major. So let's see, we have political science, research experience for undergraduates. And so this is a, maybe I should say social science. Okay, social science research experience for undergraduates. And as you can see, these research experience for undergraduate sites, there are many of them. For those of you who are majoring in social science, obviously, if you're majoring in the physical sciences, there are lots of these summer research experiences at locations all over the country. And if I Google, let's say, engineering, obviously I'm going to get a lot of research opportunities. Engineering, research experience for undergraduates. Again, this is a National Science Foundation funded program for student internships during the summers, and this is one of the probably the best ones, because let me just give you an example. Here is the research experience for undergraduates at the University of Toledo, doing research on the ecology of Lake Erie. The majors that they accept include biology, environmental science, hydrology, geography, and GIS. So there's a stipend. This is from May 24th to July 30th of this year. And this is typical of all the RAU programs. Notice that you get a stipend, $5,750. They also pay for your housing. They also pay for your transportation to and from the project site. And you get your food paid for. And this is pretty typical at all the REU sites. So there are no out-of-pocket costs for you. A lot of internships, yeah, they'll pay you a stipend, but then you have to figure out how you're going to get to wherever it is. Then they'll pay you a stipend, but they don't give you any housing allowance. But the REUs, you get all of that. And so this one, the application, the deadline, application deadline is February 28th. A lot of them have had their deadlines pushed back. Go on, take your major. Even if your major is English, like Rogers is, you might think, well, I'm not in tech. But if we go back to one of the first slides that I showed you, and it says here that this digital warfare mapping technology, it says technology too complicated to use, some say. So there is a need for people who are proficient in English to be able to write instructions for technology that make them easier to use by the users. Okay. I actually had a friend of mine who had a degree in English, and she went to work for a major technical company, and that was her job, she was a technical writer, was to write manuals so that people using the technology could actually use the technology. The people who create these technologies are a lot of times engineers. Engineers, no disrespect, are usually not the best writers in the world, not the best communicators in the world. And that's why sometimes when you read instructions for that phone you got, or instructions for your new flat screen TV, and you don't know what they're saying, that's because an engineer wrote it. A lot of these tech companies need people with a background in engineering, or people who have good background, in English or writing, who can communicate better with the product end user. So just because you see a tech company and you might not necessarily have a tech background, don't count yourself out, because there are people who are needed to explain how the technology works. It's called technical writing. Very lucrative occupation. Okay, so for next time, I want you to take a look at these last three articles. This is Angela Allen's Money Map. And I also want you to look at this article on sample saint and geofencing. And then last but certainly not least, Netflix Movie Pass. And so that's where we will pick it up on Monday. Again, in the meantime, please be aware that you have a couple of writing assignments to do on the 8th of February, next Monday. Writing assignment 1, writing assignment 2. Please watch the lecture recordings. If you have any questions about the lecture recordings, please let me know. Get in touch with me. That's why I'm here. Or just attend class during these meetings and ask questions to me directly. So I am going to stop recording now. Thank you very much.